Good evening. I'm Senate President John L. Valentine of the Utah State Senate. Welcome to the Utah Historic Territorial State House here in Fillmore. Welcome to the important guests, to my colleagues of the legislature in both the House and Senate. Welcome to those who are joining us this evening on TV and on radio. Most importantly, welcome to the governor and my friend, John M. Huntsman, Jr.
President Valentine, Speaker Curtis, honorable members of the Utah Supreme Court, Lieutenant Governor Herbert, constitutional officers, senators and representatives, Mayor Starley of Fillmore, the greatest town in America, honored guests, fellow Utahns. I am honored to be here tonight with my wife, Mary Kay, the finest human being I have ever known, and our family, to whom I owe a great debt of gratitude. I was elected, but together we serve. I want to thank the great citizens of this state for allowing me this opportunity to be your governor, and I do so with honor and deep humility. As citizens, you make this state work. You create the jobs, work hard, pay the taxes, raise families, and ensure a better tomorrow. Yours is the most important task of all, and I thank you for doing it. This location gives me a deep sense of purpose. It is where my family's roots are. A few blocks from here, you will find generations of my ancestors, Huntsmans, Robisons, Melvilles, and Bunkers, who all rest in the town cemetery. Their tombstones say it all: father, son, daughter, mother, soldier, saint, educator, farmer. They are the ones who made this town of Fillmore, in their own words, the center of the universe. My ancestors, no doubt, would be as surprised as I am to be delivering this message from our state's first territorial capital. Nearly 150 years ago, Brigham Young gave the opening address at the beginning of the first legislative session of the Utah Territory inside this very room. His vision for our land focused on promoting education, industry, and the production of goods while keeping laws easy to understand and ultimately seeking to obtain the territory's admission into the Union as a state. It was a simple vision, but its relevance rings true even today. Tonight, my brief words are driven by a personal philosophy that will serve as a backdrop for everything I do. I would like to begin by delivering a few thoughts on public service that I recently shared with my new cabinet and senior staff. Number one, we are temporary custodians of our positions of responsibility. And with this service will come a strong sense of duty, obligation, and integrity. Number two, we recognize that the taxpayers of this state are the customers and pay the bills. Number three, public service is a privilege, not a right. Number four, although we might not always agree on how we get there, the interests of our people always will be put first. We owe a great debt to our ancestors, whether they came in 1847 or like Mary Kay's family during the last generation. I am mindful of the living legacy they have left for us. I, too, want to ensure a successful legacy for the coming generations. Our system of government, warts and all, is the envy of the world and relies on each succeeding generation stepping up to put service first. This service continues today in many forms: police, fire, educators, and during a time of conflict, our military. Today, our state's National Guard has close to 1,000 soldiers serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, with an additional 500 currently en route. Since the beginning of the global war on terrorism, more than 80% of our Utah National Guard's men and women, both Army and Air, have been mobilized. This is in addition to those from Hill Air Force Base, one of the finest military installations in the country that we will fight to keep in our state. Thank you. We thank their spouses and families who sometimes bear the greatest of hardships. May God bless you all. Tonight I propose a new partnership between this legislature, our administration, and all residents of Utah. There never has been a better time to pull together and realize the most challenging yet most rewarding work lies ahead. My administration's policy priorities focus on 4 common sense fundamentals. This card that I carry in my pocket is a daily reminder of these priorities: economic revitalization, education, quality of life, and governance. Each one of these priorities has purpose in helping shape our tomorrow, each a reminder of our common destiny. And so today we must begin to pay less attention to party affiliation or which branch of government we come from, and focus more on using our differences to strengthen our communities, our cities, and our state. The economy will be central. In recognizing the task ahead, we must be realistic about our competitive position as a state. No longer is a marketplace just along Main Street, as it was for my grandfather here in Fillmore. Today, the marketplace is regional, national, and global, with a level of speed and complexity not seen before in human history. We either rise to meet the competitive challenges of today, or we fall behind. In today's world, there is no such thing as managing the status quo. For Utah, this should be good news, as our competitive advantages are many: human resources, research universities, entrepreneurial drive, and our geographic location as the crossroads of the West. Now is the time to go to work on our competitive environment. With capital flows that are instantaneous, our competition isn't just Colorado, Nevada, and California, but also China, India, and Canada. When it comes to economic development, treading water will not be acceptable in my administration. We must have job growth that keeps pace with population growth. And for a state now growing at twice the national average, this will not be easy. We must have good-paying jobs that allow people to support a family and cover a mortgage, not those below the national average. The greatest state in America deserves better. We need to be able to pay our bills going forward so that our children and grandchildren can enjoy the same quality of life experience that we enjoy. We want an environment of opportunity for all who wish to call Utah home. To that end, we need a tax policy that is not only friendly to our citizens, but also creates a competitive environment for business. Business as usual will leave us behind our neighboring states. During the next year, we must take a hard look at modernizing our tax structure, which will have long-term benefits for our economy. This can truly serve as an economic development tool to encourage entrepreneurs to keep their businesses located in our state and reinvest their capital time and time again. It will foster existing industry to expand and consolidate operations from around the world and allow us to attract the kind of commerce that we are seeking in our great state based on what we do best. I recognize that tax reform is a complex and challenging issue that will take all of our efforts to implement. An important first step that we can take this session is to allow for double-weighted sales regarding our corporate income tax formula, with a game plan to eliminate the corporate tax over the next few years. This approach must be coupled, however, with a short-term strategy on sales and income taxes to ensure no revenue holes are left. I need your help on this. The last time we had a major revision in the tax code was in 1959, before I was even born. The personal computer didn't exist. The word internet hadn't entered our lexicon. Our economy relied on mining, not microchips. Eisenhower was president. It is time for change. I will encourage efforts after this legislative session to review all aspects of our tax code and continue to find solutions that benefit Utah families, encourage economic growth, and provide a stable revenue source for our state. Focusing on economic development is vitally important because it will provide us with the resources necessary to pay for a world-class education for our children. There is no expenditure more critical to our future success. I am reminded of a letter I received recently from my son's principal at Clayton Intermediate School, Rosemary Barron. She wrote, "I urge you always to focus on public education. It is the vehicle to prepare our students toward active participation in our democracy. Nothing could be more important." I thank Rosemary for that reminder. In fact, our recently proposed budget calls for more funding support for public education than this state has seen in nearly a decade. We are bolstering support for reading, launched by Governor Walker, and for the first time, math. And will soon focus on reading comprehension and writing, all of which are key pillars of literacy necessary for success in today's complex world. I come from a long line of educators who looked upon their task of shaping tomorrow's minds with immense pride. It is time to figure out a way to pay our educators more. My budget recommendation offers unprecedented support for beginning teachers who are willing to become invested in the system. Also, after hearing too many sad stories about our good teachers paying for rulers, erasers, and pencils out of their own pocket, I've put $5.5 million of new money into classroom supplies and materials. In the real world, this means that each elementary school teacher will find an additional $300 more for their classroom. I fully support Utah's public schools, public charter schools, and school choice. I also will encourage business leaders to become more actively involved with education through implementing programs that unite them with parents, teachers, and students. It is time that every child had a learning environment that catered to their needs so they can have the education they deserve. As some have said before, children are the messengers we send to a time we'll never see. What we are finding, not surprisingly, is that no two children learn alike. All children learn differently. My own 6 kids, all of whom are in public schools, defy any easy categorization. Our ongoing challenge will be to find the genius hidden within each of our individual students. We will then need to ensure that our students not only have the tools, but the confidence needed to make meaningful contributions throughout their lives. Also, when evaluating our educational system, let's look to additional indicators of success. Instead of just the student-to-teacher ratio, let's look to things like an adult-to-student ratio. Let's tap into our vast volunteer potential and can-do spirit by asking parents and grandparents to come back to the classroom for purposes of mentoring, tutoring, and career guidance. While we're fortunate that this year's economic picture is bright, there are many unmet needs to be addressed. First, for too long, the dedicated people who serve the state of Utah have not had a meaningful pay increase. They need one and deserve one, and I'm committed to working with you to provide it. My budget calls for the largest compensation realignment in more than a decade. Also, some of our friends and neighbors with some of the greatest health care needs recently lost funding for dental and vision care. I support restoring and have budgeted $5 million in funding for the Medicaid program that covers these costs. It's the right thing to do, and we know that preventative care will save costly emergency care in the future. Transportation issues must also be addressed now if we are to avoid total gridlock later. Promises made must be promises kept. For example, when it comes to Legacy Highway, let's build it. And when it comes to taking the steps necessary to build commuter rail, let's take them. I have asked Lieutenant Governor Herbert to work with legislators and residents from throughout Utah to do what we must to improve our roads, enhance our water systems, and make certain that Utah's infrastructure is in solid, working condition. One concern that could negatively impact our state for generations is the storage of Class B and C radioactive waste. My position on this is clear. B and C waste will not be dumped in Utah. As your governor, I will do everything in my power to keep hotter levels of nuclear waste out. The most effective and permanent solution is to pass tough legislation. I will work with legislators, and by the time this legislative session is finished, we should no longer be discussing the possibility of B and C waste entering this state. We will take measures during my administration to protect our unparalleled quality of life. We live in Utah because of what it represents: home, family, and hope. No matter where you travel or how you travel, north, south, east, or west, you meet some of the finest people doing the most marvelous things for the betterment of their loved ones, their community, and their state. I encountered good people in city parks, local cafes, churches, on ranches, and in high-rises, virtually everywhere I go. Each time my heart is touched, and I am reminded that it is my sacred duty and responsibility to make sure we have a viable core infrastructure and plan to pay for it in place to meet our growing needs well into the future. Finally, we will focus on excellence in governance. I will minimize politics and maximize service. I intend to implement an ethics reform package for the executive branch. That includes full disclosure. We will also implement a mandatory cooling off period of 1 year for elected and appointed officials in the executive branch before they can become lobbyists. As governor, I believe in term limits. No governor should serve more than 2 terms. We will also focus on campaign finance reform to keep fairness and transparency in government. I strongly believe these measures will make us more accountable for our actions and give us the ability to serve you, who in turn will have greater confidence in your public servants. As a newcomer to elected politics, I come before you tonight with this simple plan in place to pave the way for a better Utah. It won't be easy. It won't work without cooperation between all branches of government. It won't be achieved tomorrow or within the next month, but it will be accomplished as we put partisanship aside and rally together toward a common destiny, that of jobs, education, and quality of life. Last week, I witnessed firsthand the devastation in Washington County as I stood on the edge of the Santa Clara River with families who watched their homes swept away by the unforgiving flood. I can think of few things more emotionally wrenching than losing one's home. We truly have citizens in need. Nevertheless, I took great hope as I joined with a volunteer army of thousands who stood shoulder to shoulder in the rain and mud to fill sandbags, remove debris, and do all that they could to relieve the suffering of their friends and neighbors. I saw in action what each of us knows to be the case. Utah's greatness isn't her majestic mountains or awesome research facilities. It's our people. My desire is that, thank you. Thank you. My desire as the 16th governor of the greatest state in America is to serve each of you to my fullest potential, to listen to your concerns and work with you to find solutions. This next year can be the beginning of an unprecedented period of cooperation and community building. People truly reaching across boundaries, be they religious or race, political or geographic. A state that is sincerely civil and respectful of each individual's pathway toward life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness will be our goal. But I can promise you that as we work together, we will become a better people and a better state. May God bless Utah and the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Governor John Huntsman, Jr. delivering his first State of the State address from the Territorial State House in Fillmore.
We will now go to a taped Democratic response to the governor's speech delivered by Representatives Ralph Becker and Patricia Jones.
Early pioneers carried few personal effects to their new homes in Utah, but handmade quilts were among their most cherished possessions making the trek. Those quilts became a legacy, passed on to children and grandchildren, giving each generation the honor and responsibility to be keepers of the quilts.
Hello, I'm Ralph Becker, and I'm joined by Pat Jones. As elected representatives of the people of Utah, we have a responsibility as keepers of the quilts to add a few stitches of our own to preserve what has given us and add to it in like measure. Cherished panels of Utah's quilt represent our quality of life, our natural surroundings, distinct cultural heritage, communities, and our families. Families strengthen society. They naturally work together to create a brighter future, to nurture our young. We count on parents to be involved in their children's education, read to them, know their friends and teachers, and above all, to teach their children right from wrong. Utah Democrats pledge to help by investing wisely in ways that strengthen our families. One way is by supporting good jobs from sustainable development. Let me give a few examples. Utah's scenic and outdoor recreational opportunities are unparalleled. Tourism is one of our largest job producers, but it requires constant attention to recreational facilities coupled with focused marketing. Utah Democrats still believe in our Olympic slogan, "The world is welcome here." Knowledge and innovation drive our economy as never before. Our marvelous colleges and universities may be our greatest economic asset. Wise investment in Utah's primary research universities promise $7 return for each dollar spent, producing new businesses and new jobs. We support efforts to bring in large corporations, but we must also focus on our own small businesses. They create most of our new jobs and economic growth. $1 spent locally will return 5 times that amount through what economists call a multiplier effect, generating the funds for jobs, transportation, schools, charitable contributions, and support for our neediest citizens. Government expenditures play an important role in Utah's economy, too. Hill Air Force Base is our largest employer. We are committed to keeping the base here and strengthening its mission.
Quilting was one way Utah's pioneers preserved their legacy, a small but important way of investing in the future. Perhaps the most important legacy we can pass along is our knowledge. But that part of the quilt is becoming threadbare. Utah's classes are still dangerously overcrowded. Our teachers do a marvelous job under difficult circumstances. Over a single day's time, one high school teacher may be asked to teach as many as 200 young people, each having different abilities. Our student population is growing. The responsibilities we place on educators are growing. The funding is not keeping pace. If we want opportunities for our children, if we want positive job growth with sustainable wages, if we want our children to be able to remain in Utah, then we must find the resources to invest in education. Vouchers or tuition tax credits are not the answer. They use taxpayer money to subsidize private education, leaving us to make up the difference or allowing our public education system to degrade. Democrats do not believe Utah taxpayers should subsidize private schools at the expense of public schools. Modern education does not end at the 12th grade. We were once among the nation's leaders in sending our young people to college. That is no longer the case. Still, we are known for having a hardworking, industrious population. We must couple that reputation with a second positive panel in the workforce quilt: educated young people well prepared for any work challenge. Over the past decade, Utah has made little progress in providing affordable higher education. On a percentage basis, fewer young people participate than a decade ago, especially those with lower incomes. Utah's college enrollment gap between whites and minorities is the largest in the nation, but state funding has not kept up with student enrollment. We also need to continue to provide alternatives for students through strong vocational and applied technology schooling. Many students may not pursue college, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve and need training for their job pursuits. Engaging the private sector is critical to the success of this effort. The quilt is unraveling. Democrats want to improve opportunities for all our young people.
Pioneer quilts were carefully stitched, making sure not a single thread was crooked or loose. In the same way, stitches in today's quilt of government ethics must be straight and certain. For years, lawmakers have proposed reforms to promote good ethical practices, but every major proposal has been buried, preventing final consideration. We hope for a new day in Utah and want to work with Governor Huntsman, our colleagues, and others on issues like banning gifts to legislators, greater disclosure of campaign contributions, and prohibiting the personal use of campaign funds. There should be a 2-year moratorium on legislators becoming lobbyists after they leave the legislature. And we need to enhance the public trust in democracy by establishing an independent ethics commission to review alleged violations, an independent commission for redistricting to prevent gerrymandering, and a bipartisan state elections office to protect elections from scandal. The people of Utah deserve the best from their public servants, especially in the case of our ethics quilt, a stitch in time saves 9.
Utah's tax system still serves us, but this part of our quilt is worn and frayed, patched together at a time when the state's economy was totally different. Former Governor Olene Walker is to be commended for beginning the discussion on this important issue. The promise is a lower rate if we broaden the base. A tax system with a broad base is not just one that taxes more items and services. It is one that is paid by all who benefit, including businesses. We all have a responsibility to pay because we all reap the rewards. If we only adopt the benefits to business interests, our tax system will become more burdensome for Utah families. We can benefit from a more sensible tax system fashioned from today's economic structure, not yesterday's worn-out threads. But we cannot support a piecemeal approach undertaken in haste. This is one quilt that needs to be carefully crafted.
In the coming weeks, we will present our budget priorities. They may differ a bit from our Republican colleagues, but we'll try to answer the critical questions of our day. Do you want your children to be in overcrowded classrooms? Do you want our state to be a dumping ground for the waste of others? Do you want your family members to hold down multiple jobs simply to support your family? Do you want your children to have to leave Utah in order to get jobs which pay enough to support their new families? Do we desire a future protecting our wonderful assets and providing opportunity for all? We enjoy living in this great state. Our opportunities far exceed our challenges. This year we cheered the Red Utes' undefeated football season. 20 years ago, we celebrated the Blue Cougars as our national collegiate football champions. In the spirit of coming together, moving beyond the red and blue state election year differences, we'll pull for the Purple Cats of Weber State to be Utah's next national champions. Who knows what the next 20 years can bring? Like all Utahns, we value cooperative efforts. We propose that the coming legislative session be like a quilting bee, working together, using the pattern of a legacy quilt from the past, repeating the best but adding new designs of our own, something worth passing on to the next generation. Thank you and good night.